I have considered the urgent pleas that I'm receiving from Washington for crucial committee action this next 4 months. If I were in a gubernatorial contest, action on very vital bills would drag. In the past 3 years, we have passed in the Congress of the United States more vital, progressive domestic legislation than in any other 3-year period in the history of this nation. This second session of the 90th Congress gives us an opportunity to add a 4th and final year of dramatic progress in the Congress. This opportunity may not arise again for a generation. Under the very special conditions present this year, I consider it a high duty to remain in the Senate this year, pushing this progressive legislation in which I believe and in much of which I am either the sponsor or co-sponsor. This is not an easy decision, as I have more support pledged for a gubernatorial campaign this year than in any other campaign of any type in my lifetime. I believe that victory would be assured should I announce. And within the past 10 days, for the first time in my life, people have begun to say there'd be no runoff if you run. Many Texans devotedly desire that this state move forward governmentally. This has been for me a decision of where best to serve the public good under all the circumstances prevalent in America and in the world in this year of 1968. And weighing all of these factors this year, I do not choose to run for governor.
We have received complaints from some people that there have been magazine salesmen and other salesmen who have rather forced their attention on these people and forced their way into the houses under false pretenses and under other circumstances. And we are attempting to find out if there's any way we can properly regulate these people, but at the same time not hurt the legitimate sales.
What is the validity of a proposed ordinance?
Well, this is the thing we're checking into. The Supreme Court has written on it several times, and the ordinance has to be drawn very artfully in order that it does not violate those principles.
Typically, if a magazine peddler were to come to my door, what could I do and what should I do?
Do several things. In the first place, you could tell him you were not interested and to leave the premises, in which case he might even be a trespasser after that time. One of the things you should do if you're interested in discussing his materials with him would be to find out whether or not he had received approval of the Better Business Bureau here in Dallas. The city's position is simply this, that in order to exercise the right that the government should have for the protection of its young people, that they should be able to classify these movies as either suitable or not suitable for young persons, and it has nothing to do with censorship as such, but simply a classification.
Why is this movie ordinance being contested?
Well, it's being contested because the claim is made that it violates the First Amendment freedoms of freedom of speech and this sort of thing, and that it is censorship.
In the paper, we attempted to go in some depth into the realities of the situation in Vietnam and to analyze where our country stood and where we should be going there. And we concluded that a escalation of the war or a broadening of the war really wasn't the answer, that the answer, in our opinion, in the Ripon Society in Vietnam was to concentrate on South Vietnam, recognizing that it's a very diverse, complicated country, a lot of local groups, that we should be paying a lot more attention to the political side of the war, to working through local leadership rather than through Saigon, and that by doing these things we could hope to contain the war and gradually win it, if that word has any meaning in the kind of situation we now confront.
Well, I think musicals are rather coming in strong again because of this very big war situation we've got. I don't think people like to see anything grim. I think they want to be sort of happy-hearted and gay and lights and music and glamour and everything in a world of love and beauty, and I think musicals give you this certain lift.
Are playhouses like the Bronco Playhouse here a good way for young dancers and singers to break into the big time?
By all means. Nothing is greater than getting on a stage of this type, and it's a great opportunity for a young artist.
I have resigned as ambassador to return to Texas to seek the office of governor. I do so out of a long-standing interest for my state and its people. From my days at the University of Texas, when I majored in government, through my later life, when I held various positions in politics and government at the local, state, national, and international level, I have tried to make a contribution wherever the need existed. And a need does exist in Texas today. The need is to continue the effective, progressive, creative government based on sound principles that we have had under Governor John Connally. We in Texas cannot afford a caretaker government.
I think that the election of 1968 could well prove to be the battle of the century, and we've had some big battles in this year and this century, as you know. I think it could well prove to be one of the closest elections. It will certainly be one of the hardest fought elections in this century. I believe in fighting hard. It's the Johnson policy, and the United States simply can't afford 4 more years of the Johnson policy. That is what we have. Take a map of the world when you go home tonight, if you have one, and stand back from it just a few paces and throw darts at it. And I will say this, you're going to find it very hard to hit any place in the world where the United States isn't in trouble, where an embassy hasn't been stoned or a library burned or an ambassador insulted or the flag spit upon, or where the United States, in terms of its foreign policy, in terms of its respect, isn't worse off today than it was when General Eisenhower left office. Let's look at Europe, for example. That great alliance, strong in 1960, now is virtually a hollow shell, or is becoming that. The French have virtually left it. The British are having deep problems. Not one of our allies in Europe is assisting us in Vietnam, and that's one of the greatest diplomatic failures in history when you consider the fact not only that we participated in World War II, but that it provided $50 billion for their assistance since that time. And what do we find as far as this administration is concerned? No plans, no vision, no new ideas to build this blue chip, and it is the blue chip in terms of the defense of the free world, to build it up again and to strengthen that alliance. That's Europe. Let's look to